The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California on this lovely Thursday morning in July. We've got a big show planned for you today. We've got all of our fingers crossed that things will work connection-wise because we're hoping to reconnect with Alex Plank, who is our man on the ground at the Autism Society of America conference that is happening right now in Wisconsin. And I don't know about all of you, but I'm reminded this morning more than ever of some of the reasons why this show came into being, because I'm looking at everybody on Facebook that I know and they're all at this conference and I see the topics, and we talked a little bit yesterday with Alex and Anita Lesko, and Anita was talking about some of the panels that she's on, and I'm beside myself. I'm like, oh, I'm missing it. I wish I was there. There's a lot that's happening and people are getting together, and I know what comes of that you come back and your batteries are refreshed and you feel like, oh man, there's a community of people and we're all striving for the same thing, and you get excited. But you know, here's the reality, is that sometimes you can't go. In fact, a lot of times you can't go. And it may be for lots of different reasons. It may be because you're choosing to stay home and be with your child so that they can continue to have therapy, because if you left, there'd be nobody else to take them to therapy. It may be because you don't have any child care, period. It may be because you can't afford to go. How about that for a reality, right? For a lot of years, that was the boat that I was in, is that I would get these emails inviting me to conferences, and it would be, you know, even if it was $75, it was outside of my price range. And I remember just feeling like, man, I'm missing the boat. There are people and they're talking about things and I'm not getting to hear what it is. Now, we're not going to hear everything that's happening at the conference, but I do think it'd be fun. We're going to try to connect with Alex at least once during this program, and he's going to have some guests there so we can get a feel for what's happening there. I do think there's nothing like going and being there, but even when you're there, I'm going to tell you that there's so much happening that you can't get to all of it, right? So you have to hear the buzz. One of the things that I think the Autism Society of America does particularly well is that every morning they have an opening session where somebody stands up and kind of recaps the highlights of the day before. And I found that really particularly exciting when I was there last year. So in any case, we're going to try to drop in with Alex a little bit later on. So if you're sitting there like me and feeling like, oh man, I didn't get to go to the conference, we're going to try to give you a little taste of it. And that's part of why I decided in the beginning to do a radio show, and then later why I wanted to do it in this format. This was Dr. Graham Pichet's idea in this format, but to give people a way to get the feel of and the information of things that happen at a conference when you can't go to the conference. That's really what started the whole thing. Isn't that interesting? So today we're going to try to put paid to that. All right, but we are going to be with you live for the next 2 hours, and we have other guests as well. Bonnie Yates is going to be here to talk about legal matters, and that's a really good thing. But always, we want this to be a two-way conversation. We want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings, your concerns, your questions. So the fabulous Samantha is going to show you some of the different ways that you can connect with us. And while she does that, I want to remind you that our homepage is autism- that's the little dash thing, right? -live.com. autism-live.com. When you go there, lots to do. It looks like a desktop. It's not the best website. I'm just going to be honest. But it, it functions. It does what it needs to do. So, and it looks like a desktop. It's really beautiful. My desktop is never that clean and neat, just so you know that. You can see the desktop up there. That's exactly what it looks like. But there's a computer screen, and on the computer screen, if you click on the little triangle, it will start either the live show playing or the most recently recorded live show. And in that way, you can be watching the show. If you want to go back further through the archives, you do it in one of the ways that Samantha's showing you. I really recommend YouTube. It's the most efficient way to find our older videos. But while you're on the live feature, there is, while you're on our website, there's something called the live feature. It's just to the side of the computer screen. It's a series of white boxes. If you put your cursor in the box that says your questions, you just start typing and you hit enter, and it shows up here on my screen, and you and I can have a conversation. That's just one of the ways to talk to us. You can also be talking to us on Facebook Live. You can talk to us on YouTube. We're live there. If you don't know for sure that you're watching the show live, and it should say it on your screen that you're watching it live, if you don't know for sure, I really want to encourage you when you're writing in questions to make sure that you reference exactly what it is you're talking about, because what happens is I come in the morning and there's a chunk of questions and I don't know which part of the show they reference. So help me. I'm old. I need as much help as I can get. Let's all remember that. So give me as much information about the thing that you're asking about and what it was that you saw. If it was a guest, try not to just use pronouns she. If you can think of what the name of the guest is, great. If you can't, describe what they're talking about, if nothing else. All right, is it a deal? The other thing that I like to remind you at the start of the show is that while there are many experts that we have on the show here, I'm not one of them. And don't confuse me as being an expert in the field of autism. I'm not. Now, do I think that I know a thing or two? I hope so. After being in this community for 12 years and hosting shows in this community for, I think, a total of 8-9 years now, I hope I'm gaining some knowledge, but I'm not an expert, and let's not confuse me with the experts. What you do want to think of me as is somebody who's in your corner fighting for you and who thinks about you. Oh my goodness, how often I think about you, and sometimes I don't even know your name, but I know that there are people out there that are struggling, and I remember what it was like when my son now he's doing so well, but in the first few years, whew, yeah. It really kicked my hide. And so I want to be in your corner, and I want to help you to get to the things that are meaningful to you as quickly as possible. And sometimes that's easier than other times, and sometimes my bag of tricks is empty because autism help isn't everywhere. But I'm willing to listen, because you know what I always say, we hold hands. You say, puede, we can do this together. We can. We can. So if you're feeling a little low today, I'm glad you're here. We're going to replenish, and it's going to be good. All right. We like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to make sense of it. First, we give you an actual definition, which we make fun of, and then we give you a working definition, which really kind of takes it down. Sometimes we have to take it down even another notch to try to get a handle on what is it we're talking about so that we can start to use these terms. But after all these years, I see that the parents, you guys have done such a great job of learning these terms. So today's term, it's an oldie but a goodie. We've done it before. There it is. It's mastery. What is mastery? And this is one of those confusing ones where I think we all feel like we know what mastery is, but what are we talking about with mastery when we're talking about autism and we're talking about ABA therapy? That's when it gets confusing. So let's take a look at our actual definition. Mastery is the point at which a child is said to have successfully acquired the target behavior determined by previously established criteria. That's the easiest. Is that really the hard one? Because that's the easiest definition I've seen before, because there are hard ones for mastery. But let's take a look at the working definition and then really take this apart. Mastery is when the child is independently demonstrating the desired skill at the desired level. The hard part about mastery is, I want to straighten out my skills sign, because if you're using skills, you're going to constantly be wanting to know, when is a skill mastered? So I always like to think of My Fair Lady, because you know, at the point when they're trying to teach her how to talk, and then somebody says, I don't know whether it's Professor Higgins or the other guy, says, by George, I think she's got it. That's what we're calling mastery. It isn't always that she has it, by the way. I think it's really important, that think in there. I think she has it. So before we go to teach a skill, there's a couple of things. First we identify what skill we want the individual to learn. And let's say that, let's compare to. So let's say we're going to teach toilet training, and we're going to just focus on urinating in the toilet. And then we have another skill that we want to teach, which is how to safely cross the street. Because these two things could very easily be on one person's agenda of things that we're trying to teach them. In both cases, with both lessons, there's two things that we want to determine before we even start to teach them. I mean, first of all, we want to know how much do they already know, right? Get a baseline. But in addition to that, we want to decide what we consider mastery to be before we start to teach it. And we want to figure out how we're going to plan for generalization. Ooh, right? Other jargon terms. But let's focus on the mastery here right now. So if I'm going to teach toilet training, what's mastery going to look like? Am I going to say that it's not mastered until they never have an accident? Well, I think kids continue sometimes to have little accidents, but we're not going to count, if they have an occasional accident, we're not going to go back to zero and go, oh, they're not toilet trained, right? I know lots of kids that we consider toilet trained, but then, whoopsie, they have a little accident. But how often would you consider it? How often does the accident have to happen before you consider them mastered at it? For some kids and for some people, it might be once a month. If once a month they have an accident, we consider that mastered, right? For other kids, we're going to be much more stringent with it and say we don't want them to have an accident, within a 24-hour period, and that we'll still call that mastered, right? And when something is mastered, it doesn't mean that we leave it alone. We continue to work on it, but not as heavily. It's not heavily in rotation for a skill. So you decide, okay, once the child is, and mastery takes place over several different things. They have to be able to do it with different people, and they have to be able to do it in different locations, because that's where we're getting to the generalization, right? So we might determine mastery is that they can do it in across 2 days for toilet training, let's say, and that a lot of times mastery, the sort of default is 80% of the time. If 80% of the time they're able to go to the bathroom, then, we're going to call that mastery, because we're not looking for perfection in the beginning necessarily. But how about if we're looking at crossing the street? Can we say, oh, it's going to be okay for us if they can do it 80% of the time? No, it's got to be 100% of the time. So, and until a child can cross the street 100% of the time and put in motion that they look both ways and do it safely, then we're not going to consider it mastered. Now, a lot of times a team will get together, and usually it's the BCBA who's deciding what the mastery criteria is. But a lot of times they'll say, okay, we're going to say that it's that they can do it 80% of the time. So that would be 8 out of 10 trials, and they can do it across 2 or 3 sessions. Then if they can, then that means that if there's 10 trials, that in 8 of the 10 trials, the child can do it. And if they can do it during the morning session, the afternoon session, and they do it again in the morning and the afternoon session, boom, 8 out of 10 trials, we're going to put that in the mastery file. Okay, but some kids are sneaky. right? Because let's say that they don't get it right. If we look at their graph and they didn't get the first one right of the 10 trials, and they didn't get the second one right, but all the ones after that they got right, it's still 80%, but we were refreshing their memory because they didn't get it right on the first one, so we said try again. They didn't get it right on the second one, we said try again, and then it's like, oh yeah, now I remember what it was they were teaching me. But they got consistently morning, and afternoon, they got the first two wrong. So at sometimes you set the mastery criteria and then go, oh yeah, no, it's not really working. And so you change the mastery criteria. So I just want you to realize that mastery criteria, you got to plan for it, you decide what it is beforehand, but then you have to be flexible with it afterwards. Because we really want to get to the point where we say, by George, I think she's got it. And sometimes later on, we go, nope, don't have it. We go back, change the mastery criteria, and then go on from there. But it's a really important distinction because we will keep something heavily in a rotation, because when we're trying to learn something and get to mastery, one of the most important things we need to do is give plenty of learning opportunities. Once it gets to mastery, we want to leave room for something else. So we put this on a different kind of rotation and say, we're going to do this maybe, once a day instead of 4 times a day, right? So mastery is important. Just remember, decide it beforehand, but then check to make sure that it's actually an efficient measuring stick for whether or not they really got it. Okay, mastery's slippery. It's a slippery little fellow, but it's important. Okay, moving on, we always have a question of the day. And my question to you today is, what's the best gift you've ever given? Not the best gift you've ever gotten, but what's the best gift you've ever given and why? What was it about the gift that, because I'm imagining, but tell me if I'm wrong, that the best gift you ever gave was something that gave you pleasure, but it gave them pleasure. So a lot of times we misread what somebody wants because we think, well, I would want it, so I'm going to give that to you. But when we do our best gift giving, it's something that that person wants. How does this fit with autism and with ABA? Well, always we're working towards giving a meaningful reinforcer to somebody. So if we want to teach the skill of toilet training, there has to be, to us, it's meaningful that we will not have to buy any more diapers. Can you hear the angels sing? To us, it's meaningful that we'll have to do less laundry because there's no soiled underwear. To us, it's meaningful because having to clean out the diaper and throw away the diaper because you can't flush them, when you can just flush the poo and it goes away, that's very meaningful to us, isn't it? To be able to go places and not have accidents and have to bring 5 changes of clothing for your kid, it's meaningful. But that's not usually what's meaningful to a little kid. There are different things that are meaningful to them. And sometimes there's nothing meaningful about being able to go to the bathroom on a toilet to them in the beginning, right? So we have to pair something that is meaningful. So I always want us to be in that mindset of not thinking about how would we like it, but thinking of how other people would like it. Because when you give a reinforcer, it's kind of like a gift, right? It has to be something that's meaningful to them. But let's have some fun with what's the best gift you've ever given. As I was thinking about this week, there were 2 times in my life, well, I guess there's been several times in my life, but 2 times in particular that I recall giving a really great gift. Once, I'm so glad, was to my mom, and it was for a Mother's Day gift. And I was working and making decent money, and I was single, and so I had money, and I had started shopping right after Christmas and the after Christmas sales, and I kept seeing things that my mom really, really liked. And I was building a box because I didn't live near my mom, and more things kept going into it over the months. And I really had more than enough to send her for a Mother's Day gift, but I happened to go to an outlet store that had the particular kind. My mother was born clubfoot with both of her feet backwards, had surgery, and it was very different. She wore 2 different size shoes. One of her feet was fused so that it had to be a 1-inch heel, which is hard to find. And she had these really expensive Daniel Green bedroom slippers that she absolutely loved, and most of them had the right size heel, but you had to get 2 pairs so that she could have, and it was expensive. And so for my mother to get a new pair of slippers was an expense. And I went to a Daniel Green store. I didn't know that they were going to have it at the outlet store. I went to it and they were having a sale, like a ridiculous sale. And lo and behold, I was teaching college at the time, and lo and behold, one of the people working there that unbeknownst to me, was a former student who said, Mrs. Penrod, what are you doing here? Miss Penrod at the time. And I said, I'm here and I didn't know you worked here and I'm doing it. So he said, get whatever you want, and I have a discount for family and friends that I can give you on top of the sale. It was ridiculous. I love a good sale. Can you tell? Anyway, I was able to buy like so many pairs of slippers for my mother that I was able to put some away for Christmas and other holidays and everything, but I sent her like 4 pairs, which is 8 pairs, in addition to everything else in this box. And she cried when she opened it. She was like, this is the best gift ever. It was just amazing. And I had so much fun giving it, and she had so much opening it and enjoying the things in it. Because it involved thought, and it was the thing that, was always the most sparing for her. Being able to get her multiple pairs of slippers at the same time was really cool. So write to us on Facebook. Tell us what was the best gift that you have ever given. All right, moving on. We always have a topic every week, and our topic this week is to teach them to fish. So you've all heard of the old adage about when you give a man a fish, you've fed him for the day. But when you teach him to fish, then you have fed him for a lifetime, and you've made it possible for him to feed himself for a lifetime. And one of the things, we haven't really talked that much about the trip that I took last week, and I'm getting ready to take another trip, but I got to meet a lot of parents and a lot of therapists. And I was struck by 2 things. I was saying this to both of them. I was saying to the therapist, make sure that you're teaching the parents how to do what you do, because they have to be there many more hours now than you're ever going to be there. And eventually the goal is for you to not be involved anymore, for you to leave, and the parent needs to know how to do it, right? So I want to say to the parents watching, make sure that you're learning from your therapist, whatever way is best for you, and tell your therapist to teach you how to fish. But as parents, we have to do the same thing for our kids. And it's not easy. And I'm at a point where I'm like, we focused on a lot of things, and there are definitely things that I've taught my son to prepare him to be out in the world. But he just turned 14. I'm nowhere near done, and there are things that I'm behind on. And that's been made wildly apparent to me. So we're going to talk today a little bit about teach them to fish. How do we teach people to learn, and how do we teach people to be able to take care of themselves? It's something we all need to be prioritizing. Okay, so on today's show, we have, of course, as I mentioned before, our fabulous attorney, special education attorney, Bonnie Yates from Here, Ji and Chow, and she's going to be with us in just a little while to talk about, we were in our ongoing conversation with her about when you file due process and what that's like. Everybody take a breath, right? And then we're hoping, keep your fingers crossed, that a little bit later on we're going to hook up with Alex Plank at the Autism Society of America conference, and some of his special friends and guests that he might run into while he's at that conference, and plus more. We've got our mindfulness moment, our autism in the classroom moment, all of that, and ever so much more. So stick with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hey guys, welcome back to Smarty. Today we're going to be making homemade glow-in-the-dark bouncy balls. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are 2 mixing bowls, something to stir with, measuring spoons, borax, cornstarch, water, glue, and glow paint and food coloring. So step one, you're gonna take one of your measuring bowls and you're gonna measure out half a teaspoon of borax, 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, and 4 tablespoons of water. Then you're gonna mix that all together. I'm gonna set this aside. In another bowl, I'm gonna mix my glue and my glow-in-the-dark paint and any food coloring I wanna use to make it a special color. I have 2 separate bowls with the mixtures in them. Now I'm gonna put them together, letting them sit for the next 15 seconds, and then I'll stir them together. It's important that you let them sit for a moment before stirring so they can do their magical thing. Now that the 15 seconds is over, I'm going to stir together the mixture, making sure to stir thoroughly until I can no longer do it anymore. You'll see what I mean in a second. Now that I can no longer stir it, I'm going to start rolling around in my hands to make a ball. And voila, very own homemade bouncy ball. Woo! Well, I hope you had fun with this activity today. Until next time, craft on, guys.
And you see me flying by your side.
Welcome back to Autism Live. You know, every Thursday now we try to feature an autism in the classroom moment. And for the last few weeks, we've been trying to squeeze in 5 tips to prevent summer slide. So it is time for number 4, which is build. Now, first of all, to recap, summer slide is what happens to all kids, whether they're on the spectrum or not, when they're not in class. You know, they're outside and maybe they're playing, and that's a wonderful thing. But if we're not keeping up with teaching them and having them learn, they will lose skills, and when they come back in the fall, not be as ready to start the school year. It's so bad that most teachers at this point spend the first 8 weeks of the new year recapping everything that they did in the last school year to make sure that everybody has a base from which to move on. So we've got these 5 things that can help your child A, have fun, and B, keep the learning going, because for kids on the autism spectrum, this is an ideal time to not slide and instead move ahead. We can get caught up. Okay, so building, number 4, and remember, any of these 5 things you can do at any point with any individual, regardless of their skill level. You just figure out where to start. So for little itty bitty kids, we have those blocks that they're called pop blocks, and they, you know, you can squeeze them and pop them together and make different things. You can start with a little baby with those, and even if they're just squeezing them and you're doing more of the putting together, it can be very fun. But very quickly, you want to make sure that every little baby has some blocks to play with. Blocks that nothing to do to attach, but that we can stack them, because we can line them up, which our kids are good at, but we can stack them in different configurations. I love Fisher-Price makes blocks that are extra reinforcing because they have different things in them. They shake, or they do something, or they have a figure in them. Babies love these. They're very reinforcing. But if you don't have those, Einstein played with little wooden blocks. There's nothing wrong with that, but every kid should have some blocks. In fact, when your child got diagnosed with autism, at some point, the person diagnosing probably sat down and made a block structure and then put blocks in front of the child to see, could the child copy them? Well, this is a great thing to do with your child for fun. And you can make it reinforcing because you start out with something very simple that you think that they can do, and if it's only putting one block and putting another block on top of it, you do it, and you can help them hand over hand to do it, and then you praise them and tickle them and do all kinds of fun things, give them bubbles, whatever, and they go, hey, the party shows up when they do this. So then you make it more and more complex. Also, you're starting to teach cause and effect, in that one of the things that our kids find really reinforcing a lot of the times is that you build it up and then you crash it down. Our kids tend to really love that. You got to make sure that early on with little ones that they're not just about the crash, right? So, and because it's not as much fun if you just crash it. So if you're trying to build and they start to crash it, you kind of get non-responsive, no reaction, none of the, no, we don't do that, right? Because a baby thinks this is hilarious and they'll laugh. So if you build it and they're crashing it before it's time to crash it, you just, no eye contact. It's like you turned off, right? But very fun to be able to do this. As soon as if you want to start working on hand skills and hand-eye coordination, then you go on to Duplos. Duplos are the Legos that are for little kids, and they're really colorful, and now they come in lots of different colors that aren't just the primary color. They come in colors that are traditionally girl colors and colors that are traditionally boy colors. I think it's good to mix those up and not have anything traditional. But lots of reinforcing colors for your kiddo to choose from, and you can start to build structures. If your kids are older, you can be using any of the construction systems like Lego, Mega Blocks, anything like that. You can always go outside and you can build something out of sticks. You can make a fairy house. You can go to the beach and make a sandcastle, right? Remember to bring a bucket and a little plastic bucket and anything else that can make a shape and help your kids to build sandcastles. It is such a great thing. I love, when parents write in and they go, I don't know how to teach creativity. Well, creativity comes with seeing possibilities. So when we take something that we wouldn't normally look at something as a building tool and build with it, that's what builds creativity. So if you feel like, well, Shannon, I don't have these expensive toys. Again, go to a beach, play with some sand. If you don't have access to a beach, get out all of your, plastic Tupperware or whatever and build something out of that. You don't have those? I know you got a couple of pots and pans at home. Build something with the pots and the pans. It helps. Our kids in particular tend to be really in tune with the building gene, right? So they get excited about it. It gets to be really fun. Make sure that if your kid is advanced in this, you can start looking at erector sets. You can look at, they had those Arduino sets where they can add electricity to things. They have Lego Mindstorm where they can be building robots. Let your kids build. I just the other day had said to my son, what do you want to be for Halloween? And he's drawing specs for this thing that he's building. It's a steampunk thing and it's going to light up and it has to have a fan. Oh my goodness. But it's good for them. Feed whatever they're interested in, but get them building. It's really good for their brain. It teaches flexibility. It teaches cause and effect. It teaches planning, right? But it gives them a way to fail because you build the block and it falls down. No harm, no foul, right? So it's a really good thing for our kids. Building, it's something that you can do this summer, no matter what age, no matter what you have, you can find a way to do this. All right, we're going to take a break, and I think we're going to be back with our mindfulness moment. Stick with us.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Johansson, and this is My Little House.
My Little House is an interactive, multi-sensory educational felt toy that I invented to help develop children's language skills.
I love My Little House.
I've been working as a speech therapist for over 20 years. I have spent my entire career working with young children. I work with children with language delays, and I have many children with significant cognitive disabilities and children on the autism spectrum. It has been a constant challenge finding toys that are fun, educational, and actually engage my students. In every preschool, since I've been a young therapist, we carry on these felt boards. Kids love them because they're soft and they're fluffy, and there's usually these little pieces that attach to these boards because felt sticks onto felt. You bring them into the activity because they're putting a piece on the board. So it's almost kind of like magic. So then I just thought, wouldn't it be great if I could just take this one-dimensional board and make it into an actual three-dimensional toy? How cool would that be?
That's the idea behind My Little House. You can spread it out flat like a 4-panel felt board, or here's the cool part. In the blink of an eye, My Little House easily converts into a 3-dimensional reversible house.
This is the outside. This is the inside.
My Little House comes with 36 felt cutout pieces that match outlines in 8 colorful rooms. And they're felt, so they stick. Each piece inside My Little House has been placed with purpose.
For instance, in the kitchen, whole, half, under, on top, inside, big, bigger, and biggest, empty and full, circle, triangle, inside, outside.
Really cool thing, I have a nonprofit, Lecotech. They are the folks that put out the Differently Abled Guide for Toys R Us. They've been doing it for 25 years. They gave me their seal of approval as a toy that they feel is a toy with purpose, and that will make a difference. But My Little House isn't just for kids on the spectrum or with significant disorders. It's also for typically developing 2 to 5-year-olds. It's a fun toy.
Oh, this is so soft. That piece goes.
Recently, I took My Little House to the American Speech and Hearing Association convention in Philadelphia, and the response from my peers was overwhelming. Hundreds of therapists, teachers, and heads of school districts wanted to order them.
It was real validation for me that this truly is a toy that needs to get out there.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod. I'm a proud autism mom, I'm a former educator, and I am the host of Autism Live. And as all 3 of those things, I want to recommend to you My Little House. This is one of the smartest toys I have ever seen for teaching language to kids who have emerging language. Whether they're on the autism spectrum or completely neurotypical, it's a great, fun, reinforcing toy, but it's especially great for our kids that are on the autism spectrum because it makes learning fun and it makes it tactile. They have these felt shapes and they get to match them up. And I'm telling you, even the adults love to play with this. We loved this toy so much that we wanted to be able to bring it to you at a great discount. So right now, if you will go to www.smartfelttoys, and when you get to the coupon code, put in a-live.com, you'll get $5 off. Isn't that great? So I want to encourage you, go and get My Little House for all the kiddos in your life. We just love the My Little House. And I know so many of you have gotten and used the deal. And please write into us and let us know how you're doing with your My Little House and what you think of it, because we love it. A couple of quick things before we go to the mindfulness moment. We had somebody who was writing in on the live feature this morning, even before the show started, wanting to know about chelation and what do we advise about chelation. Again, I want to remind you that I am not an expert. The best place that I would tell you to go to ask questions of parents about chelation who have done chelation with their children is go to tacanow.org, T-A-C-A-now, N-O-W.org. You can find a bunch of parents who have had experience with chelation and can tell you, and I really want to caution you, because there are some cases where chelation is recommended for some children, but it's something you have to be really careful with, because you have to have somebody who's really experienced, and it really needs to be necessary, because it is probably the most severe thing that we could do with our kids. There are reasons for it. But it isn't something to do lightly, and you will find parents who have gone through that, and they'll tell you recommendations of doctors that they've used, experience that they had with it. All very important, I would think. tacanow.org. If you are thinking about doing biomedical treatment, I always recommend that you go to TACA, and you'll need to become a member at TACA, but it's a very reasonable membership, that there are lots of benefits that come with membership at TACA, and one of them is that you can have a free biomedical mentor, a TACA mentor, that will help you as you start to work with your doctor on biomedical things, that you'll have somebody to run things by, ask questions. It will save you a lot of money and a lot of heartache and a lot of worry. So I really want to encourage you to do that. I personally never did chelation with my son, so I don't have any experience with that, but I hope that you'll go on to Taka, and they've got a lot of information that's on their website about it, and then sign up for a Taka mentor so that you can be talking with one-on-one with somebody who's been there and done that, who can help you to know more about that. Also, somebody wrote in and said that the best gift that they've ever given was hope. Oh my goodness, isn't that my favorite four-letter word? Hope is the thing that if you can give somebody hope, that feeds all of our discussion today, because we said, you know, give a man a fish, teach him how to fish. Well, when you give somebody hope, that is like the number one thing in teaching a man to fish. And you know that I'm using the term man interchangeably. It's how to teach anybody to fish is to give them hope at the gate. So wonderful, and thank you for writing that in. Boy, that just gave me goosies, right? Okay, so it's time, before we go to Bonnie Yates, it's time for our mindfulness tip, our mindfulness moment of the week. You know that we talk about mindfulness because this is a stressful road. I mean, it's a stressful time in the universe, right? But especially for parents who are on the autism spectrum, they've done studies and they've shown that being an autism parent is akin to the amount of stress that a soldier has in combat, okay? That's scientifically proven. So we need to find ways to align ourselves to deal with the stress, and we don't want to constantly be medicating it, right? And, you know, and medication sometimes can be in many different forms, but if we can find something that's really good that helps reduce the stress before it happens, voila, fabulous, right? So we try to give tips here. So today I want to talk about the tapes that play in our head. You know, we all have this, that somewhere in the back of our heads, I call it the yabba yabba. The yabba yabba has something to say, right? To comment on, you know, you say something to somebody and then the yabba yabba goes, well, that didn't sound very smart. And I'm being nice. My yabba yabba says things that are much worse than that. But there's the little comment or the limiting beliefs that we have. And if we could hear each other's tapes, we would be horrified, absolutely horrified. We wouldn't talk that way to anybody else, and we wouldn't let anybody else talk that way to us, right? Whether it's the voice in your head that says, I can't, or I can't afford that, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not thin enough, or I'm not heavy enough, I'm not muscular enough. Whatever it is, those are all limiting beliefs. And there's like a tape that plays in your head that will play something over and over and over again. It's typical. One of the things that I know a lot of autism parents, myself included, a tape that starts to play that is, you know, my life isn't like yours. I don't get to do the things I don't get to have the things you have because I have a child who's on the autism spectrum. My life isn't like yours, right? And it would just, in my head, that would play over and over and over again. And whether it's true or not, if you play a tape long enough, it becomes true. It becomes how you live your life. So I just want to put some mindfulness into you today. What's the tape that plays in your head that you don't need? What's the tape that plays in your head that is not serving you and your mission and what you want to do? And once you identify that, can you replace it? So my tape was, my life is different. I don't get to have because I have a child with autism. And eventually, when I was able to shut that tape up, and you can't just shut it up, right? You have to replace it. Just like with challenging behaviors with our kids, we can't just say, don't do that anymore. We have to replace it with something that's more functional. So what I replace that with is I get to do extra things because my child has autism. And you know, that was also true because my son got to go surfing with a professional surfer because he had autism. My son got to, you know, ride the ride quicker at Disneyland because he had autism. My son got to go up and meet Temple Grandin because he had autism. And the truth is, the rest of my family looks, because we started going, hey, you know, we are special. Not special needs, just special. And we get to do things that nobody else gets to do. And the rest of my family goes, man, you get to go places, you get to meet people. And I go, yeah, that's true. So you can change these tapes to whatever you want to change it to. And you'll find that if you change one thought, then you can change other thoughts. And remember what we said before, even if it isn't true, it becomes true. So you can choose a tape that isn't true right now, but that's going to become true. I had a tape that I would play that would say in my head, and I would say it vocally to people. I use the R word, the recovery word. I used to say to people all the time when my son was in therapy, my son is actively recovering from autism. Now, I understand that the language for a lot of people is not politically correct anymore, and I've stopped using that term, but I gotta be honest, I used that for years in my head. And, you know, I really feel like in a lot of ways that came into being. I don't consider my kid one of the recovered kids, but every day, my son gets more and more independent, which is really what I meant by that phrase. In any case, change the tape in your head and your life will change. Let that be your mindfulness tip for this week. Think about, what is the tape? What would I like it to be? All right, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back with Bonnie Yates, special education attorney. And don't forget, Alex Plank, hopefully, fingers crossed, coming up later on. Stick with us.
This is the Act Today, One Hope Act Today for Military Families Run and Festival, and it's to benefit military families challenged by autism. So we're out here for a great day. Not only is there a 10K run, a 5K run, and a 1 mile fun run, there's a kids run and there's an Easter egg hunt. Military families are particularly hard hit because they have very special circumstances.
I have 3 kids in my family. You know, my nephew has 3 children that are all on the spectrum. And for me, it originally became about understanding and learning about autism. And then it became about, you know, what can I do to help? It takes $3 million to raise a child through their lifetime with autism. That's a great reason to get involved.
On your mark, get set.
One Hope Wine is the 7th annual title sponsor of the One Hope Act Today for military families because we believe that giving back is good business. Of-age runners are probably going to meander over to the One Hope and Stone Beer and Wine Garden for a celebratory glass. For the younger generation, the Family Fun Zone.
This is a big thing for us because it's about getting more treatment to more people, raising awareness. It's a really good event. We're proud to be a part of it for 7 years now, and we're a local office, so we wanted to be here.
Stroller Warriors is a free running club for military spouses and their families. A lot of us are impacted by autism, so it's just a great way for us to get together and raise some money and bring attention to this important cause.
think people forget the people element involved with autism. You know, the families that are suffering, the children that are suffering.
Society could be robbed of so much untapped potential, talent, and skills if we're not helping the children of these military families as much as any other children out there. Not just those suffering with autism, but those struggling.
People should get together and tell their friends and family to donate to Act Today. It's a really important cause, one that's close to our heart and the San Diego community as a whole, and an incredible opportunity to support the military. So get out there and donate.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It is always my excitement and my pleasure to bring to you Bonnie Yates from Hirji and Chow. She is an amazing special needs attorney, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about Hirji and Chow and how you can get a hold of them, and then she's going to give you a disclaimer, and then we're going to jump right in. So Bonnie, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Hi, everybody. I'm assuming that you're experiencing a little bit of calm maybe now that school's over, but I told that to my sister, who's a special needs mom, and she said, "What are you talking about? Summer's hell." Yes. So anyway, yes. I guess we could explore that more, but what we do is we try to talk about areas of interest for parents that have kids in special education in the public schools. I'm licensed in California and before the federal courts in all 50 states. So those jurisdictions are going to influence the kind of general answers that I give to questions that people have. And then also it's always important if you have a specific question in your own state to consult a lawyer and not rely on general information. And to that end, I'll just say the firm Hirji and Chow LLP can be reached at 310-3910-330. If you want a consultation, the summer's a great time because we're doing less of that. But, you know, our offer stands, which is we will give you an intake, we'll give you about an hour of our time and talk to you about your issues and problems. So we are going to have a discussion today about procedural safeguards when we get to that. But I had kind of a little comic bit that I decided I was going to do first a couple weeks ago, which was just I had an afternoon where I was working at home and I was doing client intakes. And I had an intake and then I had a break of 1 hour and then I had another intake. And so on my break, I rode my bike to the farmer's market and I bought about like $40 worth of stone fruits, peaches, pears, apricots, plums, pluots. You get the idea. And I left them in the farmer's market and I rode my bike home. And then I got home and I was like, oh shit, excuse my language, we're not supposed to swear on the air, but I was so busy thinking about the second intake, I forgot my fruit at the market. So I like get in my car and I drive right back to the market. I've got 10 minutes before my intake now and I don't want to be late. And the guy was like, yeah, I tried to come after you, but you disappeared so fast. So anyway, the moral of the story is keep your fruit separate from your intakes because the fruit is very compelling at this time of year. So summer is a very, it's a different time for us because we don't have the same press of IEPs. That can be a good thing in terms of getting other things done or finishing a blog that sat on the shelf for a couple months. It's also a frustrating time though because you can go to a late in the season IEP meeting as I did last week. The district can throw down an invitation to assess, which they should have initiated, in January or something. And then when you ask them, but this isn't going to be done until the first month in September, they smile sweetly and they say, of course not, we don't have the personnel. So, that's another fruit of summer is you can't get your IEP generated assessment complete. And that's, really frustrating. So what we're doing just, in the summer is we are getting all our cases that need to go to due process ready for due process. And I thought I would talk about that for a minute before we move on to the procedural safeguards and what they actually include. So when we request records, it's changed a little bit. I mean, first of all, we have to get parental consent to request those records. So we get the parental consent, and we send a records request to the district, which is quite specific, in which they consistently overlook certain categories that they, prefer not to give us, which then necessitates sometimes a second request. But anyway, we send out our request for records, and heretofore, we used to get paper records. But more and more, we're actually just getting electronic records, and that's good and it's bad. It's good because they're, in a computer that you can take to the IEP meeting. It's bad because it can be hard to read records online. And if they're online and they're not in order, then you have a problem, because what we will normally do is we'll take all of the records from the beginning of time, we'll put them in chronological order, and we'll usually read them from the beginning to the end. So if the child's been in special ed for 10 years, you'll put everything in chron. You'll read, the initial assessments, you get a sense of what the history's been like, and then you'll jump forward and you'll read the last 3 years of stuff, because as you know, we only can go back 2 years in California to sue based on a failure to provide FAPE. And so we get the records in order, and then what we do is we summarize everything that's important that we think we're going to use either at the IEP meeting or the due process. And we also note what the statute of limitations is. So for example, if we have an IEP in the packet of stuff that's coming up that says September 9th, 2015, we know our due process has to be filed on or before September 8th, 2017. We don't want to miss a statute of limitations, because that may mean giving up a part of the case that the district's vulnerable on, and we need all the leverage we can have. So after everything is organized, summarized, if there's an IEP meeting to go to sort of finish things up, we go. Otherwise, what we do is we take our summary and we outline the issues, and then we prepare a complaint, we file for due process. And I think we've talked about how, once we do that, the Office of Administrative Hearings gets the complaint, the school district gets the complaint, the school district prepares a response, and then the Office of Administrative Hearings issues a scheduling order telling us when the mediation dates and when the hearing dates are going to be. So that's the kind of stuff that you can do during the summer. We do it all year long, but in the summer you're able to, maybe concentrate a little bit more without interruption. And so we're always looking through those IEPs and assessments and things like that for both procedural violations, failure to give parents their idea rights, and substantive violations. And substantive violations, usually fall into the category of, the district failed to provide a FAPE. But the procedural violations can be very important and appropriate too. And that's why we're going to talk about procedural safeguards. So Shannon, let me pause now. Do you have any questions about any of that?
No, actually, I need to go briefly to a commercial, and then we'll come right back. Can you hang on 1 second? So
Okay.
Quick commercial, and we'll be right back.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're at the ABCs and XYZs of Special Needs Conference. And this year, for the first time, they've got something really remarkable. It's the Entrepreneurial Boutique. These are all items that have been made and are being sold by individuals who have special needs. So we're going to do a little shopping and talk to some of these fabulous entrepreneurs. Come on.
My name is Molly Rarick, and I'm founder of Breed's Gift. We're a nonprofit that serves teens and adults with special needs, like Chase here. We were founded in 2013 and serve people in the Conejo Valley, Santa Barbara, and LA.
Our main objective is to give our participants the skills they need to gain a more independent life.
My name is Shelley Cox, and Lisa Zalagi and I are founders of Creative Steps and Create Micro Business Enterprises. And the The items that we're selling here today are all made by the clients who have passions about what they want to make, and then they get the profits from what they make after we've paid all of the other expenses.
We are here today because my goal is to be independent, and also I would like to share all my artwork, and I would like to sell.
Thinking about at his young age being a businessman, it's amazing. I cannot be more proud.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here with special education attorney Bonnie Yates from Hirji and Chow. And Bonnie's going to talk with us about procedural, what is the word I'm looking for? Procedural what?
Rights and safeguards. Hold on 1 second, Shannon. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. And while she's gone, we can admire her lovely taste in artwork. Isn't that amazing? And Bonnie was just saying before,
Thank you.
And I was just going to say before, when we did in case somebody is dropping in right now, the disclaimer that this is advice of a general nature, and Bonnie is licensed to practice law in California and in the federal courts. So just if you need to consult a lawyer, consult a lawyer. But,
right. I mean, that, and we gave people, and we will continue to give people on the air, the www.copaa.net. So you can find a lawyer in your state that's an experienced special education lawyer. So I know that it's been your experience as a parent, because it was mine, and even as a lawyer, where I would go to an IEP meeting, and they would, give me this booklet, and it would just be like, ugh, and then they'd say, do you have any questions? And we'd say no. But those are really important, the procedural safeguards, and once you crack them open, you see that there's really a lot in there, and in some cases what the district is doing is they're actually, in lieu of advising you about things in the meeting that could be important in terms of your understanding the process, they're giving you this booklet, and basically you're charged with knowledge about what's in there. And so it's important that we know what's in there. So I'm going to give it to you kind of macroscopically, and then we're going to get more specific. So First of all, what LAUSD promulgates is something called Procedural Rights and Safeguards Notice. This is like a little abbreviated shorthand thing that they have. And basically it says that LAUSD has to give a copy of the procedural safeguards to the parents of special education students once per year. So that's interesting, because normally you only get it at the IEP meeting, but this suggests that LAUSD, even if you didn't have an IEP meeting, needs to get that to you once a year, which I don't think ever happens. It also says that they have to give it to you under the following circumstances: upon the initiation of a special education assessment, when the parent first files for a due process hearing, and when the parent requests the notice. And then they have an internet website, LA does, where you can go and look at the safeguards. The contents have to include a full explanation of the following: your right to an independent educational evaluation, which we've talked about, the right to prior written notice, which we're going to talk about some more, parental consent, meaning no special education services can be initiated unless you have parental consent, and then the student's rights to access educational records, and the opportunity to present and resolve complaints, i.e. informal dispute resolution or due process. So they're alluding to something that LAUSD and some of the districts do, and we've talked about, which is that if you have a dispute at the end of the IEP, you can elect to ask the district to use their informal dispute resolution process. Now, you won't hear a lot of war stories from me about, informal dispute resolution, because I don't do informal dispute resolution because attorneys are not allowed to participate. There's no attorney fee reimbursement to parents, and generally we view those proceedings as an early settlement where parents don't know the value of the case, and the district tries to get them to waive their claims in exchange for a private evaluation or something that's not particularly valuable. But it is an option, and the district is notifying you of that. They're also required to tell you the time period in which to make a complaint, the opportunity for the agency to resolve the complaint, and the availability of mediation. So that's a whole other thing that the procedural safeguards are supposed to tell you about, is how to resolve your dispute. And then also the right to stay put, which they describe as a child's placement during the pendency of due process proceedings, and procedures for students who are subject to placement in an interim alternative educational setting. And that has to do with discipline and removal. The requirements for unilateral placement by parents of children in private schools at public expense. Well, this is huge. It's telling you right there in the procedural safeguards that if you go to an IEP meeting and you don't give the district notice that you're going to privately place your child and seek reimbursement from them, that they're going to use the procedural safeguards to argue that you had constructive notice and you should have done this, and since you didn't do it, your claim for reimbursement may be denied or should be denied. And then finally, due process hearings, civil actions for appeal of the due process hearing, and the availability of attorney's fees. So generally, those are things that are supposed to be in the procedural safeguards. And then we're going to have a discussion about all of those things in more depth if Shannon doesn't have questions at this point.
No, my only question, so I guess I do have a question. We're talking specifically about LAUSD's procedural safeguards, but every single school district has something like this that they give out. And I think what we're delving into one school district because it's the one that is here and it's the biggest one. But everybody needs to be aware that looking at this document is essential, correct?
Well, yes, because you're going to be charged with knowing what's in it, and it's going to be used against you.
Okay.
If you say, well, I didn't know I had to give notice, they're going to say it's in the procedural safeguards. Well, I didn't know I had the right to an informal dispute resolution. Well, we handed you a document that describes it.
Right. Okay.
So, so yes, it's important to know what you are being. You know, my analogy would be, it's like having a client come to you and they have a contract and a problem with their contract, and they are saying to you, well, I didn't know this was in here. Well, you didn't read the contract? Well, no, it was kind of, intimidating and overly legal, and, same situation here. So the LAUSD procedural safeguards I'm going to treat like a template for all of the procedural safeguards in the 50 states, and we're just gonna we're gonna learn what the school district thinks we're supposed to know when we come into an IEP meeting. So they start properly with step one, which is referral for assessment. So let's just go over referral for assessment for somebody who has a student that they think may or should be eligible for special education services. So they talk about who can refer. And I think this is very important because we see a very low number of referrals by district staff. We don't see referrals by teachers. We don't see referrals by speech therapists. We don't see referrals by, the PE teacher or whatever. So the first sentence that LAUSD has, it talks about referral, is a parent, guardian, teacher, or other school personnel and community members. So that could mean your doctor, somebody from your church or temple, who believe that a child may need special education services, may request a special education assessment of the child. So it's really potentially anybody that could refer, a member of the juvenile court, somebody from the Department of Children and Family Services, the child's therapist. The request should be made in writing and provided to the school principal. Okay, so that's always a question you have, is who do I send it to? A request for special education assessment form is available in all school offices. So what they're telling you, and I don't think it would work this way, but it would be nice if it did, you can just walk into the principal's office, request a form that they've already prepared and request a referral to special education. We tell people to write a letter and say, I'm requesting a referral to special education because little Johnny doesn't seem like he's talking enough for a 3-year-old, and he's got some kind of sensory seeking behaviors. So I don't know what their form says, but they're supposed to have one. Then we get into timing issues. Once a request for assessment is received at the school, you will be provided a written response within 15 days, not counting school vacations longer than 5 days. So that's that whole summer problem, is you can't initiate the assessment during the summer, but during the school year, you're supposed to get a an assessment plan from the district within 15 days. If the district determines that an assessment is appropriate, you will receive 2 forms, an assessment form and an assessment plan. So the first is a notification about the process, the second is the plan itself. Now this is interesting. If the district determines that an assessment of your child is not appropriate, you will receive written notice of this decision. So that is the prior written notice that they're supposed to give you if they don't assess. But many districts do not give that notice. Now, if you requested a referral to special education and the district wrote you back and said, we don't believe you're eligible and here's why, what do you think your remedy would be, Shannon?
Oh my goodness, I have no idea.
Well, maybe it's obvious and maybe it's not at all obvious. Your remedy is to file for due process.
Okay.
So that's the first instance in which you go to due process, is when the district says your child isn't eligible for special education and related services. So they go on to say that the assessment plan describes the type and purposes of the assessment which may be done. And we know that they could do all kinds of things in a multidisciplinary team assessment, from, assess for auditory processing to assess for social emotional needs and counseling services. That's all supposed to be detailed in the information they send you. Now, you'll remember in that little kind of macroscopic description of the procedural safeguards that we did, we said that one of the issues was consent.
Yeah.
So this is the explanation, and it makes perfect sense. Before your child can be assessed, you must consent to the assessment by assigning the plan. Your school is required to make reasonable efforts to obtain your informed consent for an initial evaluation. You have at least, I don't know what the at least means, you have at least 15 days from the receipt of the assessment plan to consent to the plan by signing it. Okay. The school has 60 days, not counting school vacations, greater than 5 days from the receipt of your signed assessment plan to complete the assessment and hold an IEP meeting. So there you've got your timelines set forth in terms of the district cannot ignore your request to assess. They have to respond in writing, and once within a reasonable time. And once you get the assessment plan, if you don't sign it and consent to assessment, the IR versus LAUSD case, which is about a year and a half old now, says they have to file for due process. If they think the child needs special education and related services, they have to take action. They can't ignore it. If they don't get consent, they can't assess. So they have to deal with you further on that point. And then they have to complete the assessment within 60 days, and complete means actually from start to finish, hold an IEP meeting and present you with the results. So that's kind of the assessment piece. In a nutshell.
So I have a question though.
Yes.
We've been talking about the fact that you need to read this and understand this because you're going to be held responsible for it. But isn't the flip also true, that the school is responsible for this as well? What happens when they don't follow their own procedures? Isn't that kind of a slam dunk when you get to due process?
If you can show harm, yeah. Definitely.
Okay, you have to show harm as a result of them not following their policies.
You have to show that it varies to some extent, but what you're going to be looking to show is that this procedural violation interfered with some substantive right of the child.
Okay.
So if the child didn't get timely assessed due to procedural violations having to do with the exchange and processing of forms, and the child therefore missed out on 90 days of special education that he might have been otherwise entitled to, then you can see you're moving into an arena where there's an effect on education, and it's discernible and it's actionable in terms of compensatory services.
Okay. All right.
So I think we might be at a good stopping point. Is that true?
I think that that's very true.
Okay. So I know it's summertime. I know you're running around going to the farmer's market or to the, or to camp or to, wherever you're taking your kids. But if you have questions, it's a good time to get them answered. Send them in.
I absolutely agree. It's gotten kind of quiet on the question front because I think a lot of parents are frustrated because the school has kind of, and there's no communication going on with the school. But I think when we meet again in 3 weeks, I think we're going to have a bunch more questions from parents coming in because school's starting.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. I really welcome the questions. And what we're going to do is finish assessment, and then we're going to talk about the next step, which is development and implementation of an IEP.
There we go. Love it. If you had said to me that I would be excited about that 13 years ago, I would have said no thank you.
I know, I feel the same way, but to me now, it's like they are accountable for what's in their book.
That's right.
Let's use their book against them.
That's exactly. I love that. Let's do that.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you.
Have a good week, everyone.
And have a great time. We're going to see you in 3 weeks, Bonnie. Looking forward to it.
Good.
All right,
Enjoy
take
the
care.
summer.
All right,
Okay, bye-bye.
bye-bye. That was Bonnie Yates from Hirji and Chow, and she's an amazing mom, a special needs mom. We don't focus on that very often, but Bonnie has an adult son that was diagnosed with autism as a child, and so she gets it. She really, really gets it. In any case, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back. We're hoping to connect with Alex Plank at the Autism Society of America National Conference that's happening right now in Milwaukee. Stick with us.
Potty training is different for every child. A child could come in with absolutely, no control over their bladder, and as long as that's not a medical issue, then we can certainly approach it behaviorally and give them the tools they need to be successful, just like any other skill that we would teach.
Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet, and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
For some of our kids takes, just a couple days. And then for other kids, it can take months and months and months. And then when you're looking at complete independence, it can take years.
Hey, you have to go pee-pee?
There's a lot of different ways to tell if a child is ready. We look for a couple different things. Probably the most important is parents saying, I need this to happen, I'm ready. Second is, a child showing interest in the bathroom, and some of it is simply age. It's time to go ahead and work on this.
What are you doing? Pooping. You're pooping?
You first start with teaching the child what they need to do on the toilet. The basic thing we want is for them to drink as much liquid as possible. It's inevitable that if you drink a bunch of liquid, you're gonna pee.
No, I can't help you pee. I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
Ultimately, what we want is that, the child, as soon as they're put on the toilet, they urinate. So that's step one. Step two is usually working through the amount of time that they're off of the toilet and making sure that they're not having accidents during the time that they're off. So this is kind of the bladder control stage of things.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time! We can come play after. Hurry!
What we hope happens in this time is that the kids will learn how to initiate going to the bathroom on their own. This is oftentimes the hardest part of potty training, is because they get so used to somebody telling them when they need to go that they're not really recognizing the signs just in their own body of when they need to go.
Oh, he wet himself.
Uh-oh. Big wet?
Was it a lot? We can reset to half an hour now.
The biggest thing for parents is not to give up. The other big tip, and I think pitfall that a lot of parents fall into, is putting their children back into pull-ups or diapers, especially if they're starting to have accidents. And this is probably the worst thing that you can do. They need to recognize that feeling of fullness in their bladder and take themselves to the bathroom, or tell an adult that they need to go to the bathroom.
What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, job. Big push for your pee-pee. Big pee-pee. Yay! Woo! Yay! Good job. What a big boy. High five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five.
Are those your eyes? Is that your smile? I've been looking at you forever, yet I never saw you before. Are these your hands?
As a celebrity, whatever that means, you want to do what you can to give back. The way I've always looked at it, if I'm available, I'm going to be there. And when you get there and you see what folks are doing and the lives that they're touching, how can we not want to continue to be a part of it?
And for the first time, I am looking in your eyes.
What can we all do to make a difference? Not only with trying to find a cure, but to help the children and the families that may not have the resources for these kids.
When you're looking back at me, now I understand what...
None of us are doing enough, but I think that we're doing as much as we possibly can. Because we all live in society, and the more we can all do to help society, the more it helps all of us.
And for the first time, I am looking in your eyes. And for the first time, I'm seeing who you are. I can't believe how much I see when you're looking back at me. Now I understand what love is. Love is for the first time.
Welcome back. We have joining us from the floor of the conference room at the Autism Society America National Conference in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Alex Plank, and he is there with award-winning author Barry Prezant. So thank you both for joining us.
Yeah, just so you know, I'm wearing headphones, so I'm the only one that can actually hear you.
That's
But
okay,
Barry
because you're
Prezant
going to
is
talk
an
to Barry.
award-winning person.
We're going to have
Yes.
you talk to Barry.
I will be talking to Barry. That's correct. We are here on the conference floor. Shannon, are we live on TV
You
right
are
now?
live right now.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
So we are here at the publishing book place. There's books behind us. Barry is here ready to shine his books. He's got books right there. Look at that. Uniquely Human.
Wonderful
Yeah.
book.
So Barry actually moderated a panel this afternoon,
Yes.
or morning rather, I would say,
Mhm.
where he talked about, well, I guess you talked with like autistics in a way, right?
6 self-advocates.
Yeah, self-advocates.
Yeah.
And how did that go? We want to talk a little bit about that, Barry?
Sure. I thought it went brilliantly. The self-advocates were talking about quality of life issues and what they find is important in their lives that adds to their quality of life. Also, they spoke about how their parents can help them and how society in general can help them achieve a better quality of life. And things they spoke about included recognizing their talents, recognizing their abilities, giving them opportunities that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. But the audience of hundreds and hundreds of people really learned a great deal from hearing them on the panel.
Wonderful.
That's great.
And
What do you think,
I think that's amazing. Of course, I want to know, like, what's the top thing that Barry learned today? Because
So what was
Barry's
the
worked
top-
with individuals with autism for a long time. What's the top
Yeah.
thing he got out of it?
Well, yeah, as Shannon was mentioning, you've worked with individuals with autism for a long time. What was the top thing you got out of this panel?
There were a few things. The first thing was the importance of supportive people in their lives, the relationships that they had with people, in some cases with parents. In one case, it was a husband of a woman on the spectrum who happens to be a nurse anesthetist. That's Anita Lesko. But that really,
Yeah, we had Anita on yesterday on the show.
Oh, terrific. Yeah, and I think the panel really helped to shatter some of those myths, about people with autism are not interested in relationships and so forth. But they spoke a lot about having supportive people in their lives who really understood them. They also spoke about having those opportunities and setting goals for themselves, raising the bar and reaching those goals with the proper training and the proper support.
And you had a variety of autistics across the spectrum and a wide variety of diversity.
Absolutely.
There were different ethnicities represented as well as gender and everything. I'm going to switch to the other side because my arm is getting tired.
Look, there you still are. Alex, I'd love to know, what is Barry looking forward to in the rest of the conference?
One woman on the spectrum works for the Bank of America in a very high position, and she's also expecting her first baby. And then we had some young men on the spectrum who are still in school and need varying levels of support. So I think it really represented the range of diversity that we see with people in the autism spectrum.
So Barry, what are you looking forward to seeing at the conference? There's been quite a few good things already, but there's much more to come.
Yes, I'm looking forward to innovative ideas and innovative programs. There's so many exciting initiatives going on in the field of autism now, especially focusing on people's strengths, employment opportunities. And so I'm looking forward to just learning about some of these programs that are going on around the country and even around the world that I may not be aware of, because there's so much positive, creative energy in the field of autism right now.
Wonderful.
Now, Shannon, I wanted to show you a pretty cool thing that we've been doing throughout the conference. They've got these bikes that they're trying to hawk onto people, these bikes, and I've been riding them.
I want to see these bikes. We should mention, look at those. Those are interesting.
It's a 2-seater.
Wow. Okay, so
Here's
will they let you get on a bike and take a spin around the floor?
I mean, they're not here right now. They probably got mad at me if I just jumped on their bikes without asking.
I know.
First.
We don't want you to take a bike with no permission.
Too quickly. They had an issue with how fast I was riding the bike.
Oh, okay.
But if you want, we can walk. Barry and I can walk into the main conference area. You can see what the stage looks like and how sort of get a better feel for.
Absolutely. Take us on a tour.
Sure. Now everyone's gone right now because it's lunch. Yep. So that's why it doesn't look too busy. But we are walking into the.
But so you've been in the exhibit hall there. Lots of exhibitors we can see in the background.
Yep. Oh yeah.
What else has been a highlight for you besides the bikes? Where else have you found yourself? Which booth?
What beside the bikes?
Yeah, what else? What booth have you liked besides? Obviously, you enjoyed the bikes. Where else have you been in the exhibit hall? Anything good?
I think the stage is pretty cool.
Very cool.
You want to come up and sit here next to me, Barry, and we can sort of stimulate the panel? I did get some. We did go to a. You want to be on Autism Live? Have a seat next to me.
I
We're adding another person to our panel. This is Thomas Island. He's on the spectrum. He's actually, you might know him, Shannon.
Of course I do. His book just came out.
She says your book just came out.
Yes, it's called Come to Life, Your Guide to Self-Discovery. My mother and I wrote it together to help young people with autism and learning differences shape their futures because, as you heard this morning during the keynote, if you listened in, the outcomes are very dismal. So my mother and I are working to improve that in young people's lives before they engage in the process of transition.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I love Thomas's book, and in fact wrote a blurb for it that I think appears on the jacket somewhere. Great,
Excellent.
Great book, Come to Life. And I've been doing some of the workbook with some of the different activities. Excuse me, I couldn't think of the word with my son. Really great. To have Barry tell us where we can get his book.
Where can we get your book? You can get my book on Amazon or most mainstream booksellers such as Barnes & Noble and so forth.
And when
and
is
if you
Barry...
go to Amazon, you'll be able to see almost 200 comments and more than 30 reviews if you want to get a sense of what the book is about.
And is Barry working on a new book?
Are you working on a new book? We have some ideas for a new book, and yes, we're in the early stages of working on a follow-up. Yeah. That is a yes.
So I want to know what Tom got out. Was he at the last panel, and what did he learn from it?
Did you come to the last panel?
No, I was in the audience, but I wasn't on the panel.
Right. What did you think of the last panel, though?
I
as
thought
an audience
I
member?
thought it was very, very informative, and a lot of great stories were discussed, and it definitely brought attention to the things that we really need to focus on going forward so we can bring out the best in people.
I'll be honest with you, Shannon.
Yeah.
The panels and everything is great, but I have to say, and for all you folks from Milwaukee out there, I apologize, but I'm not really that impressed by Milwaukee. I have to say, it's not the best. It's not the best city I've ever been to. I will
Now,
say that.
Alex, is that because you're comparing it to New Orleans, where we were last year?
It's not because I'm comparing it to New Orleans. It's because I'm comparing it to every other city I've ever been to.
Well, I would venture that in the 48 hours that you've been there, you haven't seen all of Milwaukee. I can hear the people from Milwaukee saying, but you haven't seen everything.
I have not been to the Miller Brewing Company.
Well,
which, to be fair, there's a bottling company or a bottling facility in LA. They have breweries in California. I'm
going to venture,
honestly,
though, that if you go to the Miller Brewing Company, they're going to give you a sample, and then you will enjoy Milwaukee more than you did before.
Perhaps.
I would think. But now,
here's the
you're
thing.
mostly at
We're
the
gonna go to a
conference. How's the conference?
The conference is fantastic.
There you go.
Right? I mean, I would say that, like, also, Matt Asner's here, which is really, I think he's a great, this thing fell out of my ear. Hold on. Sorry, we're having technical difficulty. I would say that, Matt Asner is an incredibly good addition to the Autism Society team.
What do you see that's different this year that you think is really great from last year?
Well, one thing that Matt's doing is he's got the poker tournament coming up on the 9th of September at Asner's Poker Tournament. It's going to be the best one that they've had so far. There's a lot of cool stuff that he's doing, with fundraising, and I think he brings a lot to the table, which, will help, future conferences. I have heard, and I'm not technically allowed to say this, but
don't then,
Autism
because we're
Society
live.
Conference, the next conference might be in Washington, D.C. I'm guessing. If I were guessing where it would be, just out of the blue.
Anniversary, I hope we take this to the Capitol.
That would be lovely. I would like that.
So we'll see. They're going to announce the city at the end. Maybe it'll be Atlanta. Maybe it'll be. You don't know. We don't know. But my money is on DC. If we're a betting man, which I am actually going to be going. Do you know Valerie Paradis?
Yes.
I'm going betting with her. We're going to go play some blackjack. She's staying at a casino here in Milwaukee. So actually, there might be more than I thought.
I'm just going to say, by this time tomorrow, you're going to like Milwaukee more.
Sure. You're still.
Can we all get
Your chair, yeah.
I'm leaning way over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's Barry.
Yeah, so do you have any more questions? Because we have like tons of information here.
Yeah,
did
I
you
mean,
go to
I
the
still.
police training? There was a police training. You want to talk
I
about
did,
that?
and I got to hear how our first responders and our police officers and our firefighters are being trained, and there were also some psychologists in there as well that deal with young people on the spectrum.
Mhm.
And I informed them about a program that my mother and I work on called Be Safe. This teaches young people how to interact safely with police officers. Be Safe. And in addition to Come to Life, we are selling Be Safe products here at the conference, and people are really interested in teaching the young people.
We should try to get you to do something for wrongplanet.net. Maybe have a article up there. Or
I'd love
something.
that.
Yeah.
That'd be wonderful.
Barry, have you put an article on Wrong Planet?
I have not, and I should.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There goes the headphone again, or the earphone.
Technical difficulties. But you were able to score those headphones at the last minute, and they're Bluetooth.
Yeah, I just found them on the ground.
That's
No,
amazing.
I'm just kidding. Barry gave them to me.
my
They're
bag.
Barry's headphones. I
Well,
probably have
he was very sweet to
eardrums
lend
in my
them.
ears.
So from all three of
But
you,
you can hear more clearly because they're
I could
mine.
hear more clearly because they're Barry's.
That's right. From all three of you, I want to know what's been the hottest talk that you've been to yet, where it just like blew your mind and was so exciting.
Well, she's asking what the hottest talk has been, and I was just going to say that, there's only been a few so far. We're really just beginning this morning. So
Wasn't
yesterday was the
there wasn't
pre-conference,
stuff last night at the
technically.
pre-conference?
Well, yeah, but the hottest. I'm looking forward to John Robison's. I think Barry's panel was pretty hot. Yeah, people were clapping a lot for
We
that.
all learned quite a bit. And there was a pre-conference workshop on health issues that
Yeah.
Alex helped to organize. And
Yeah.
it was
That
very,
was
very
that was
important
actually an entire conference. Yeah, Asset. Yeah.
Yep.
Barry attended Asset. Do you want to talk about that? What your experience was at Asset?
It was just, again, amazing because most of the people there were self-advocates, and they were talking about their experiences in their life, dealing with medical professionals, health-related issues, and we were actually asked to help develop priorities for research and funding specific to health-related issues for people on the autism spectrum. And unfortunately, that's an area that is not well understood, and too often when people have health-related, whether they be mental health or medical health issues, it's just say, well, that's part of the autism. And so much of that is not part of the autism and can be treated separately and really helping people on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Everything from gastrointestinal issues to mental health issues such as depression and so forth.
So what were the priorities that came out of that discussion, Alex? What did the self-advocates say they wanted us to prioritize?
Well, one thing that I found was really interesting, and Barry participated in these breakout sessions, but we thought it seemed like mental health was one of the big issues that people wanted to talk about. I mean, there were other facets such as physical health and educated providers and things like that, but I feel like there was a big thing where we felt that was lacking, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that came out clearly from the self-advocates, but even in the research community, I mentioned to the group that there was a conference about 6 months ago for the Harvard Medical School, 2-day conference on autism, and about half the sessions were on mental health issues and why, unfortunately, many people on the spectrum are very vulnerable and at risk for having mental health issues and how that affects quality of life in such a challenging and negative way. And in some cases, can be prevented with the appropriate early services.
Right.
And I'm curious, was there anything that, because a lot of our audience are parents, and of course we want to help and advocate for all of our loved ones that are in the community. Was there anything that came out of it that we can say to the friends and the family of how we can best support self-advocates so that they can get that? What's the best thing we can do?
Well, in terms of the level of information that people were getting in terms of how to support self-advocates, I think that one of the biggest things that we talked about was the fact that advocates need to be compensated and more included in research. And I think that was resonated throughout the whole, all-day conference. Everyone was talking about that and how important that is.
John Elder Robison has discussed that at length as well.
Yeah, that's one thing he's been. He wrote a blog on it, and he's been talking about it. And I'm looking forward to seeing Johnny.
Me too.
We have been corresponding.
I mean, it makes sense, right? If somebody was going to do a bunch of studies about women's health, we would expect some women to be on that panel and be helping to drive the discussion.
Yeah. And another thing is just in terms of the funders, the people providing the money, that's another area where there should be an involvement in autistic on boards, in decision-making roles.
And so we know that should be, but Alex, what do we have to do to make it happen? Who do we need? Do we need to write letters? What do you recommend to us that we do?
I think we need to do. I think we just need to volunteer our time. We need to advocate. Writing letters, of course, would help, but it's a multi-faceted approach, on all fronts, and it requires a large amount of effort on both our parts as individuals on the spectrum, your part as parents, as professionals, etc. And it just really just needs to be continually drilled into people that this needs to happen. And I think eventually, these kind of things, they just gradually do become much more inclusive and much more helpful for.
Now I'm curious with, for instance, when there was the big push to get insurance to cover ABA treatment for autism, there was a grassroots movement that was look at giving us the 360 view. There was a grassroots movement, but it was political in nature, funded mostly by Autism Speaks. Is there anything that you guys ended up with that's looking at legislature and changing the way these things are legally done?
I mean, we really. I mean, the thing was, keep in mind that this was only a one-day conference, and it's not just that. We have a community council and people continually getting involved. But I think that in terms of that area, that's something that we're right now just trying to prioritize what is important and create those. Because, I mean, we need to have a plan and have like a list of what we actually want to focus on before we can actually approach, lawmakers or whatever.
So you know what I'd love to know now, Alex? What from each one of you, what are your plans for this afternoon? Are you speaking or watching somebody? Can you go down the line and start with Barry, what he's going to do this afternoon?
Okay, what are your plans for the rest of the afternoon?
For the rest of the afternoon, well, I'm doing a session with some folks from the Denver area about a new center that's being developed called the Front Range Center for Neurodiversity with Chris Harrington, and with Philip Tedeschi, who has started the very first animal-assisted social work program in the country. So anyway, we're doing a presentation later in the day, so we're going to be meeting to brainstorm and prepare for that session, and going out to lunch and get some good food.
Okay, fabulous.
What about you?
What are you doing, Tom?
I had my lunch. So my breakout session that my mother and I are hosting starts in about 45 minutes. Oh. It's going to be about preparing for transition and knowing the success factors of a good transition. So we have Come to Life, the book, and you can get that at thomasisland.com. That's ILAND. We're not on Amazon yet, but we just launched the book at this conference. The first time anybody's seeing it, and the book is selling like hotcakes.
Okay, great.
So
great. What are you doing?
That's my plans for this afternoon.
I am going to be talking to you. Why don't we walk through the conference floor one more time just to see who else is there before we sign off?
But
How much time do
thank
we
Barry
have
and Tom.
Thank you, Barry and Tom.
Thank you, Alex.
But so you're going to be talking to me for the next 10 minutes, but then after that, what are you going to be doing?
For the next 10 minutes, I'll be talking to you, and then we'll see what happens. It's anyone's guess.
So you haven't decided, because I know there's always
options.
different talks and breakout
Right.
sessions. You haven't picked what you're going to go to yet, Alex?
I have not picked what I'm going to go to.
Okay.
We've got automated home stuff right here. They've got a whole thing where they can lock the kids in or whatever, find out if they leave.
Oh, yeah, for those elopers.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a bunch of, there's a cruise line over there. There's tons of people demoing and expoing. They've got a software testing thing over here.
But I want to know what interests you.
Well, this is interesting. We could go look at this one right here.
Okay.
They're using autistic people to do software testing. So
Love
we've
that.
got a whole like thing as for tech. So yeah, hey, what's up?
You have to tell them that we're doing a live feed and ask
We're
them if that's
live
okay.
right now on. Is that okay? Cool. Well, you're getting exposure, so yeah.
So it's software. What kind of software, Alex?
Software testing, like I think it gives jobs to autistic people.
Wow.
So,
amazing.
Yeah.
Truly amazing.
We've got people here sending things, selling things. Someone's selling T-shirts over here.
Okay, what else interests you?
I don't know. I'm gonna let's go out and look outside and see where people are.
There's Emily Island.
Oh yeah, there's talking to Barry. We've got Spark over here.
And tell us about Spark.
They're like a research initiative. You want to ask them what it is?
Sure, you ask them. You're
What
my
is
man on the
Spark?
street.
Spark is an autism study. The goal is to create a large database of hopefully 50,000 individuals with autism and their parents. And once they enroll in the study, which takes about 30 minutes, everything can be done online. The family gets sent a saliva kit home. They complete the kits, they send it back to Spark, and they're enrolled in the study.
Cool.
And being part of the database, you get information about programs and interventions in your area.
Well, cool. Well, let's go talk.
Well, wait a
to
second.
John
Wait a
Donovan and
second.
Karen
Before you
Zucker.
leave there, how do they sign up?
How do you sign up? Online at Spark.
Spark.com.
No, it's sparkforautism.org. Let's go find Donovan.
Sparkforautism.org. Okay. And who are you going to go find?
John Donovan and Karen Zucker. They wrote in a different key.
Oh, right.
Hey, would you guys mind speaking on live right now on Autism Live?
We'd be delighted.
Okay, let's talk.
But you know about Thomas?
Yeah,
this
he
is
was
like,
just on.
Yeah, but this is a Thomas moment for us because
we're
we're dedicating a copy of his new book, Come to Life, which looks like this. Thank you.
How exciting.
I recommend it. We both do.
that's the book that he has.
And that's John Donovan and Karen Zucker.
autism-live and my mother too.
This is what happens when authors get together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An opportune moment for all of us.
Yeah.
It is. Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
Karen had the opportunity
Can
to
we
review
ask
the book.
some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you want to ask them?
Well, I want to know what you want to ask them, first of all, Alex. But have them talk a little bit about it in a different key.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi.
Why aren't you here?
I know, right? It's my
It's her,
15th wedding anniversary.
It's the 15th one, and I told her, after 3, you probably don't really need to do anything. But okay.
No, it is after 15 that you need to start to do that.
Oh, is that what
Exactly.
it is?
Thank you, Karen. Okay, but so have them talk a little bit about in a different key,
She wants to know about in a different key.
in case somebody doesn't know.
Being turned into a documentary.
They actually showed a clip of the documentary, which I'm going to be watching tomorrow because I had to get lost out in the
So
Japanese.
when can we see the documentary?
But I don't think you were able to see it there.
Were you at Oddfest? Were you able to see the clip?
No, you weren't. You were too busy working, right? Can you hear her?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. I think she's too busy.
Are you there?
I'm here, but we're having a little bit of difficulty hearing you guys. There's a lot of background noise.
You want to walk outside real quick? Right
Just if
out
you guys
into the
can
hallway?
speak up.
As soon as we're done working.
Okay. Well, apparently they're in the middle of dedicating the book. So.
Oh, well, they don't want to do
No.
that. Just have them speak up. But we want to know, when can you see the documentary?
When can people see the documentary?
We are hoping the middle of next year, 2018.
We're fundraising right now. So.
And it will be something in movie theaters, or are we going to see it on PBS or HBO?
I think they're basically at the point where I don't think that the distribution method is known, right? Where is it going to be? Where can we
Right,
see
we
it?
don't know yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're really
cool.
looking forward to it. And we really want to recommend
We're really
In a
looking
Different
forward to
Key, one of the biggest books ever written about autism. Amazing. And those are the two authors.
Oh, can we go and talk now?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to walk outside now so you can hear
Okay.
us better.
All right, great.
Thanks, Tom.
I hope we didn't steal Tom's moment with them. They're really amazing
Well, I think
authors.
in reality what we did was we it's now going to be here. Look
It's
at this.
commemorated forever.
Forever, yeah.
Okay, that's good. So for our viewers who don't know much about A Different Key, Alex, ask them to talk a little bit about that.
Led by
we could
Hollywood
easily have
filmmaker Alex Plank.
viewers that don't know.
Yeah, so they want to know about In a Different Key for those who might not know about it yet.
Sure. Shall I start talking?
Yeah, if you want.
In a Different Key, The Story of Autism is the book we came out with last year. And it's the first, we're thrilled that it's the first book about autism to be a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, which was announced in the spring of this year in the nonfiction category. And it's a book we spent 7 years writing together to tell the story of autism's past as an inspiration for the future. And that's because things used to be things are challenging for people on the spectrum and their families today, but it doesn't compare to how challenging it used to be. And we tell that story about how it used to be and why it changed for the better in order to inspire people now for the battles yet to come.
Well, it's still about changing the world, even though things are better.
Yeah.
The world still has a long way to go, and we want to help change it.
And what we want to do, the reason we're making the movie is that the book is this thick, and that scares a lot of people who don't know anything about autism. They think, why should I read a book like this? But we think more people will watch a movie than will read a book. And we're pretty sure that that's how it works.
Yeah.
And so we decided to take the ideas that are in the book, some of them, and turn them into a documentary.
Well, it's a beautiful book, and it's filled with amazing stories that are life-changing, so we're thrilled that it's going to be made into a documentary. Alex, I'd love to know what they're looking forward to at the conference.
She wants to know what you're looking forward to at the conference.
The same as ever, meeting people with different experiences, learning lessons, finding community. I think that's, what else would we say?
Yeah, well, that's the goal. That's what this conference is about this year, and we're going to see Tom's
panel later today, or
what?
He has a thing this afternoon, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And has a new book on young adults, I think, living in the world.
There are a lot of books, actually. A lot of books.
I'm writing a book.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it is.
It's on dating.
Oh, it's about time.
It is about time.
You've done a lot of TV on
I
that
could use
topic.
that. Not for me.
And
I don't date anymore.
Karen is a mom. I don't remember how old is her son now?
How old is your son now?
23.
23. Oh, she can hear you.
Oh,
I forgot. I was like 23.
And so is she particularly interested in the Come to Life for that reason?
Are we live or?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, okay.
Why are you walking away? Okay,
I had
you
to
just go to the
shake
other side.
hands.
So ask Karen if that's part of the reason why she's so interested in Come to Life, because she's got a 23-year-old.
So interested? Is that why you're so interested in Come to Life?
Because she has a 23-year-old?
Because you have a 23-year-old?
No.
No.
But I think that he's written from his experience, and anything like that is good for the community to be able to learn. I think his book is for people who are more independent than myself.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank
thank you,
them.
guys.
Thank them very much.
It's really a pleasure.
And we're really looking forward to seeing the documentary.
Pleasure to be back on Autism Live. Thank you.
Anytime.
We love what you do.
Thanks,
We
guys.
love what you do. Fabulous. Where are you off to now, Alex?
Well, if you want, we can talk to two other participants in Asset.
We've got about 6 minutes left, Alex.
We do?
Yes.
You can meet Walter, the dog.
Walter's beautiful.
Yeah, he is beautiful. I agree.
Oh, boy.
He's so cute.
Becca Laurie is on our community council with Asset, so she was at
Hello.
the conference this weekend.
I was. It was amazing. We did really, really well. We got lots of information, and we'll have a lot more coming to you when we get back.
Okay.
She wanted to know what you thought, like some of the most important things that you found out from the conference are.
Well, so far, our conference, the ASTAC conference, I was really glad to see that most of the community seemed to agree on where we were lacking services. We have a really clear place to start, and then as long as you guys stay engaged, we'll be able to keep going and see what else is out there for us.
Great.
Yeah. So we have 6 minutes left. I have to
You got about
Dance
5
for
minutes
5
at
minutes?
this
All right,
point.
well,
So what else
let's
can we
start
look at?
walking around.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye. Thank you.
All right.
It's a beautiful room. What a beautiful facility. When do you
Yeah.
think your book on dating is going to come out, Alex?
I don't know. I have to write it fully.
We need that book, Alex.
I want to find the biking people and ride the bike.
I know. I want to. What is so unique about the bike?
It's a tricycle.
And where are the brakes? Do you use the brakes with your feet or with your hands?
I don't know. I don't use the brakes. I just
Well, that
stop
might be
by
why they had a
crashing into
problem with
things.
you riding it around, Alex.
Well, yeah, they were like, I came in this morning and I was like, can I ride the bike? And they're like, later. And then I came later and they're like, you need to ride slower. You're doing it too fast. It's a
Well,
liability.
especially if you're not using the brake, you want to go slow.
I was using the brakes. I was joking. We have some twiddles right here.
What are twiddles?
Why don't you tell us about that? What are twiddles?
Twiddles are therapeutic activity comfort aids that help students on the spectrum, especially those who have
She's got a twiddler.
sensory issues, sensory processing issues.
Okay, so what, they stick their
This is our
hands
twiddle,
in?
Nathan. It's our
And is there something inside it, Alex?
twiddle.
Yes, there is. What is that?
It's lightly weighted, and it's
Oh, no, that's someone's hand.
Are you also, you're right over here with the V, what is it?
Well, we're live right now on Autism Live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're having a great time at the conference. It's a wonderful conference. I just came from a session called Supporting Behavior Change, and I learned so much. The woman who taught it was brilliant. Can't recommend her enough.
Alex,
Thank
have her
you.
tell us where we can find out more about twiddles.
And try Twiddle today.
She wants to know where we can find out more about Twiddle.
Twiddle, please go to www.twiddles.com.
I didn't quite hear her, Alex. For?
It's twiddles.org. .com.
ForTwiddles.com.
ForTwiddles.com. Is it FOR or the number 4? Okay, ForTwiddles.com. And there's the phone number. That's great. Okay, fabulous. Wonderful. Tell them thank you.
Thank you.
See, these are the kinds of things you don't see unless you go to a conference. This is great, Alex. I feel like I'm there.
I feel like you're here too.
I wish I was. Next year, especially if they're
free
in,
thing.
I will commit right now if they're in days. Okay, what is that?
I don't know, but I broke it.
Uh-oh. If they're in DC next year, I'm committing right now. I will be there. I want to go.
I would hope that they are, yeah.
But so what was that thing you were just playing with that you broke?
I don't know.
That was just a random thing laying around. Okay, where are we going? Because we got about 3 minutes left.
We are going to go out to the registration desk, and you can virtually register for the conference.
Oh, that would be fun. There's always good people working the registration desk.
Yeah, let's ask them. So most of them are from Milwaukee, so we can ask them what they think there is to do here.
Okay, let's do that. We got to find you some fun in Milwaukee so that you enjoy the place.
Yeah.
It seems like the hotel facility where they're doing it is lovely.
Here's the registration desk.
Okay, which hotel are you at?
We're at the Hilton.
The Hilton in
Yeah.
downtown Milwaukee. Okay, so if you're in
the downtown Hilton. I don't know if there's probably only one Hilton in Milwaukee.
I would assume that there's more, but the downtown one. Okay,
Well,
so
maybe there are other Hilton-owned properties.
And so,
why don't we talk to this Jennifer O'Toole person?
We've had Jennifer O'Toole on the show before, so great. Let's go talk to Jennifer.
Hey, we've got a Autism Society Board Director member right here.
Hey, how
we've
are
got
you?
Jennifer O'Toole. Do you want to be on the Autism Live? Have you been on Autism Live?
I've been before. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, we were just saying that we'd had her on before.
Great to be here with you guys.
And so who is this board member, Alex? Introduce us.
This is William Parker. He's a board member of the Autism Society. He's a pretty cool dude.
Hello. And where is he from?
Where are you from?
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I have 3 kids on the spectrum, and I've been doing this for about 20 years. So it's a joy to be here, and it's great to be part of the board and helping the family.
Wonderful. Thank him for his service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. doing a great job.
And there's Jennifer. And
yeah, and there's her kid.
hello.
Yes, we just did, just finished giving a presentation called Paint Chip Emotions and Tattooed Bananas.
And
so
my understanding is
through play.
My understanding is she was going to be doing her talk with Kara Kaczynski, but Kara Kaczynski had to have her tonsils removed.
Kara Kaczynski, you're supposed to do a talk with, but
That's the one we were supposed to do with Kara. She unfortunately is in the hospital.
Yes.
But she's doing all right. So tonsillectomy.
But how did Jennifer do without her?
How do you do without her?
Made sure that I had lots of the OT pertinent things listed in the slides, and made myself available to everybody else afterwards. We're going to go do a book signing, and her son actually came and said hi, and that was really helpful too. So.
And so have Jennifer tell us where we can find out more about her stuff and her book.
And also, everybody has my contact information, which is important because Kara's a good friend of mine, so they can ask me.
They said she wants to know about your book.
And
there's 6 of them now.
Is this one of them?
Yep.
Can we show this to the audience?
Absolutely.
This is a book?
The Asper Kids Game Plan. Where can we get it?
Where can we get it?
Amazon, JKP, online, but they're all on Amazon. You can go to asperkids.com, or you can just enter my name, Jennifer O'Toole, on Amazon. They'll all come up. You can put it in Google, and the Wikipedia page will come up too, so there's a lot of information that way. Now
all right.
connected to everything. So.
Tell her thank you, Alex. We have to wrap up. We've only got 30 seconds.
We've got to wrap up. We only have 30 seconds left.
But tell her thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Alex. And
thank you.
If something fabulous happens later on today, maybe we can do some more with you.
Oh, let's get right real quick. You can see Chris real quick. She's got the center.
And who are we running to see?
She's the one that's doing the thing that Barry was talking about.
Oh, hi, Chris. How wonderful.
Yep. So there we go. I think
we're out of time. But Alex, I'll talk to you later. Maybe we'll connect a little bit later on. Have a great conference, everybody.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have. You get a sense of what it's like when you're at a conference. And of course, that was the downtime. But, I find that the lunchtime, everybody else goes out to lunch, but it's a great time to meet some of the big, important people like John Donovan and Karen Zucker and be able to have a conversation with them. So anyway, stay tuned. Maybe we'll be back on later on with a little bit more. Alex, maybe tomorrow. But if not, we're back in a week and a half. And I'm back in 3 weeks. I'm gone for the next 2 weeks. So until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.